Welcome to Beacon of Speech. I'm Fred Hunt. That's Ted Coley. Hey, Ted Coley.
Hey, Fred.
How are you today?
Super. How long has it been?
2 weeks. 2 weeks and mind-crushing articles on Beacon of Speech. Okay? Now, you are a Trump voter, correct?
Mm-hmm.
I had to write an article defending Trump. And you know how much I like to defend Trump?
You don't.
I don't. It makes me want to bash my head on the wall. Okay? I'm not looking forward to this episode of Beacon of Speech. But let's start from the beginning. What is Beacon of Speech? Beacon of Speech is we are selling freedom of speech to everyone. Everybody in the United States gets freedom of speech. Okay? Is that true? Is that true today, Ted?
No.
No. Not in America today. Free speech is under a sale this week, okay? Free speech is under constant assault in America today, more so in the last week. The problem is coming from two places that's very hard to fight. From the left, PC madness. And we are going to talk about the left attacking free speech a lot today. And from the right, in the way of corporations, the mindless, faceless, evil corporations of America that we were just making fun of a few minutes to either. The concept that we're all in this together is lost in America. It is way lost in America this week. You know, this week I felt like we were all screwed. Okay? You were quoting Mike Trevisano saying you live in a world you don't understand. Mm-hmm. And every time I tried to write on Beacon of Speech, I would like do 2 lines and then do this. Oh, I can't believe this. I can't believe this is what I gotta write in 2017. Okay? What are the limits of free speech? Pure evil. Evil is debatable.
So this has been like a really rough week for you then?
Yes, a horribly rough week. And when I say
now, would this have been like the roughest week since Beacon of Speech started?
When it comes to writing, it was. Not when it came to like my mental state. I've been in worse mental states, but when it comes to writing, it was like the hardest things to write since I've been doing the blog. So, do we want to start there? Do we want to start on the crappy thing, or do we want to go on to the outline first? Let's start with crappy stuff. Actually, everything on my outline's crappy stuff too, so we could do all kinds of crappy stuff. Speaking of speech,
it's a crap fest.
It's going to be a real crap fest today. If misery loves company, that's going to be our
crap fest 2017.
Okay, here we're going to go in
Crapapalooza.
We're going to go into all the horrible stuff in Charlottesville in a few minutes, okay? But let me tell you about the outline that I had for today, even before Charlottesville, okay? Earlier this week, before Trump stepped in it, he declared a national state of emergency. Why did he declare a national state of emergency in America for? This is a pop quiz. Do you even know? National state of emergency. I bet you don't even know.
No, I don't. I don't know. I've been trying not to pay too much attention to the news. Because it just...
Trump declared a national state of emergency for the opioid crisis.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I did hear that.
And he said, and don't get me wrong, he's right. It is emergency situations in America. By declaring emergency situation for the opioid crisis, he frees up federal money to deal with the crisis. I don't know how much. I don't know if it gets things through legislature faster by declaring a national emergency. Now, I learned about national emergencies, and I'm being 110% dead serious with you, Ted Coley. 100% serious, okay? How many national emergencies do we have going on in America today? And can you name them?
Right now?
Right now, right out our window. In America, how many national emergencies are there by declaration of the U.S. government?
I have no idea.
We have 29. I had no freaking idea that we had 29 national emergencies. Okay, so I started to look. I'm like, 29 national emergencies?
They're usually weather-related, aren't they?
Oh, no. Well, yeah, that's a different kind of national emergency. I guess they have a national emergency for the homeless, for poverty, for the drug war, right? But now we have another national emergency for the drug crisis. Well, how are those other 29 other emergencies going?
Probably not too well.
Yeah, not too well. And I didn't even know, because I'm reading about the opioid crisis. I'm like, well, that's great. Donald Trump did something right. He says, I'm going to declare war on. Now, of course, we know it's all hollow stuff coming out of, Trump's mouth. It's all, um, smoke and mirrors. But I'm like, he did something. And then I find out that everything's an emergency. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. And I was really bummed out because I'm like, well, it's going to be like the emergency of poverty in America. Well, how's that been going? And they said every emergency, and this is what politics has to do and how politics sucks. Okay? Some of the emergencies have been going on since the Carter administration. I think the poverty emergency.
This whole administration was an emergency.
Well, but that's the problem. I guess Jimmy Carter said poverty is an emergency, so we are declaring poverty emergency, right? And so you're like, oh, well. Now, all the presidents afterwards, whether they agreed with him or disagreed with him, they were like, oh, crap. Well, we can't cancel the emergency on poverty or else we look like we are against poverty.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'm sorry, we're for poverty. I said it backwards. So we're for. If we cancel the well, they don't do anything. It's all lip service.
Mm-hmm.
So somehow we have 29 national emergencies going on, and you wouldn't know that anything was going on, right? Well, they're like, well, we free up the money, but at the end of the day, do the problems get solved? Okay. Now we have a national emergency this week against the opioid crisis. Now, if you wanted to go buy a big fat bag of heroin, do you think you could secure a big fat bag of heroin in America today, Ted Coley?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think you could secure a big fat pill bottle of Vicodin or any other opioid that you wanted?
Yeah.
Could I hand him a bottle of it?
Don't do that. My wife just said we can hand Ted's a bottle of it. Yes, Ted.
Where did I fall?
No, my wife really was injured. So, but the point is, okay, is that you can still get it even if you declare emergency. Now, what they're doing is they're trying to make it harder. My wife has talked about how they're trying to make it harder to get at doctors' offices. So they're taking small steps to solve it. But again, it's almost like putting a finger in the dike. You got one finger and there's 8 holes in the dike. You see what I'm saying? You're like, oh crap. So, is the emergency going to get solved? Or is it more lip service? And I'm like, I don't get the impression that it's really going to get solved. Okay? Now, same week that happened, this article came up on CNN. I'm going to show it to you. This was the headline. Can you see that headline right there?
Oh, my God.
1 in 8 people in America are alcoholics.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I read an article not too long ago.
What's that, 12.5%?
Yeah, it was like 1 in 6 people are alcoholics in Russia, right? And I'm like, oh, holy cow, it must suck in Russia.
We're getting beat by Russia again.
Well, yeah, but if you add that up between the opioid crisis and alcoholics, we're literally no better than the Russians.
We're losing the alcohol.
We're losing the alcohol war. Hey, Ted, go get some alcohol out of the fridge. Okay? So 1 in 8 people are alcoholics. Now, did you hear about that on the news anywhere?
No.
Again, everything got brushed under the rug today. 1 in 8 people are alcoholics. That's a serious number.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, literally, that's everybody's family. Let's say that you have 2 adult children, right? One adult child, second adult child, they get married, they have 2 kids, there's 8 people. That means 1 person in every other family is an alcoholic. That's horrible.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Now, is there an emergency on alcohol? For all I know, there is. Well, you can't go back to prohibition because alcohol basically pays for all the sports stadiums. What do you do about 1 in 8 alcoholics in America? You're screwed again. Hey. Now, you're like, oh, crap. Okay? Now, what is the biggest headline in America this week?
Probably has to do with Trump and what happened in
Charlottesville.
Charlottesville.
Now, Trump in Charlottesville. There was one person who was killed. She was a counter-protester, and she was a peaceful protester, right? So I'm very sorry that a neo-Nazi ran her over. And that is very sad, and not neo-Nazis and Nazis are bad and evil people, okay? That's where the free speech spectrum stops, is right at the Nazi line, okay? Once you get to the Nazis, where, like, we need to kill people, put people in concentration, that is the
kid
line.
who did it is a neo-Nazi?
Yeah, he said he was a neo-Nazi, and but people like CNN are like, well, if you don't denounce him fast enough, you must be a sympathizer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the problem is, and this is the problem that I had this week, the same week that I read 1 in 8 people are alcoholics, and the Trump declared the opioid war, we're talking about protesters in Charlottesville, okay? Now, why were the neo-Nazis marching in Charlottesville? Do you know why? I don't know if you know why. You might not know, because you said you've been avoiding the news.
I'm not really sure why.
You really don't know? They don't like making a speech. No. There is a move afoot. It is sweeping the nation.
Oh, does this have to do with the statues?
They want to take down the statues. So, online communities are going online.
Now, roughly how long have most of these statues been there?
150 years.
Okay, if these statues are so bad and offensive, why did it take 150 years for people to figure
That
it out?
is exactly what I wrote. I mean, literally verbatim. Why does it take 150 years? Okay?
I mean, if it's so obvious that they're so offensive, why did it take 150 years for them to figure that out?
Right. But here's what a lot of people are saying. They're saying that because things are so bad now, we need to, in order to get rid of racism now, we have to erase the statues.
You know what I was thinking? But where does that stop?
Well, but
Where does that stop? It's like, what if you're the descendant of a slave owner? Does that mean they can burn down your house?
well, and that's where the speech comes in. Where does it stop? Okay. Now, let's just say we'll start where the alt-right is. Okay. They said tear down the statues. Okay. I'm sorry. The alt-right says don't tear down the statues. The left says tear down the statues. The alt-right, all these Nazi groups, alt-right, all these white supremacist groups, they're all like, you will tear down those statues over our dead bodies. Right? It's like, okay, well, you guys aren't any good anyhow. For the 1 millionth time, you lost the war. Who cares? I didn't know there was like 500 statues all over the South. I thought there was like a couple. They're taking down statues in, I just read today, they're taking them down in Montana. And I guess the sports teams in Tampa, they're removing the Confederate statues in Tampa Bay. Okay, I had no idea there was Confederate statues in Tampa Bay, Florida.
I never gave one thought to Confederate statues.
No, me neither. So, but this is where you hit upon why it's been so hard to write and stick up for the people who don't want the statues down. Okay? If you take down the statues, okay, and you say, okay, we're going to take down the statues, racism's over. Okay, take them down. Take them all down. Get the sandblaster. Take $10 million out of the budget. We're going to take down all the statues. Racism's over. Okay? But it's not about the statues. If it was about the statues, like you said, 150 years ago, 100 years ago, 50 years ago, they'd be gone. Okay? It's about the war that the left is pushing and the war that the right is pushing. The right's always got an agenda, the left's always got the agenda. Once all the statues are down, who's to say your great-great-grandfather owned slaves, you're going to jail.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And
because you represent.
The question for freedom of speech, people, is if it was and this is how I feel. I don't have a problem tearing down the Confederate statues. I really don't, because I don't like the Confederacy, okay? I just don't, okay? But where's the line? Once all the statues are down, what's next?
Yeah, because
it's
something's
not
going to be next.
Well, I still remember you had a Confederate flag. All Confederate flags got to go. Okay, well, all the Confederate flags got to go. Well, you were related. You see what I'm saying? So where is the line? Now, the people who used to own slaves 150 years ago, I'm sure some of them are evil, but most of them, I don't know what the hell was going on 150 years ago. So that's the line in the sand. So when the alt-right comes out and they says, don't take down the statues, okay? Most of them are racist white guys, right? But in America, last time I checked, freedom of speech, they did not come out to Charlottesville, okay? They weren't marching and saying, kill all Jews. Now, they might believe that, okay? But they were marching saying, don't tear down the statues and the statue, you know. So, but they had their own agenda too. But they're free to say, don't tear down that statue, okay? They're not saying the horrible, evil things that they usually say, okay? So it's hard to stick up for them. And once you start running through protesters, that guy's got to get the death penalty. I wrote down his name, but I don't remember what it was. But that guy's got to either go to prison for life or get the death penalty. You can't. That's terrorism.
Yeah.
Taking your car, pounding it into a pile of people is terrorism. Okay? I'm sorry. So I said it would get dark, and it will get darker. Okay? So Donald Trump, the reason that this whole rigmarole happened is after this happened, everybody's condemning the guy. You know, Donald Trump says there's fine people on the left and there's fine people on the right. Well, the fine people on the right were not normal Republican conservatives. They were the Nazis. And so Donald Trump put his foot in his mouth. Okay? And then later
now,
on...
was he talking about the left and the right in general, or the people at these...
He was talking about the people at the rallies.
Okay.
And it's like, what's the analogy? What is this, Sodom and Gomorrah, where they said, we won't wipe out the city if there's 10 good people. We won't wipe out the city if there's 5 good people. I don't think there were that many good people protesting. But you don't know. I don't know how many good people there. I assume they're all crappy Nazis. Okay? But I wasn't there. Okay? And what I am saying is... well, but that's the whole thing. You can't be you can't be a good Nazi. But were they all Nazis? Okay, they said some of them were, and this is the point. Some of them they didn't have Nazi flags. They wrapped themselves up in Detroit Red Wing flags. And they said, we are representing their heritage. Well, what does the Detroit Red Wing symbol stand for? Well, they said, well, that's a Nazi. I'm like, I don't know any Nazis that wrap themselves up in the Detroit Red Wings flag. They're like, well, it's the new symbol of hate. I'm like, I have never heard that the Detroit Red Wing, well, he was marching to keep the statues up. So everybody who was marching to keep the statues up was a Nazi. Well, I'm not sure that that's true. You see what I'm saying? What they're trying to do is lump everybody in with the Nazis who are evil. You see what I'm saying? Everybody was there who was evil. Well, the guy with...
So again, if you disagree with us on anything, you're a Nazi.
Right, and that's where this is going. When you call everybody Nazis, it dilutes when the real Nazis show up. Now, don't get me wrong, real Nazis showed up there, and they should have been, given the old heave-ho. Okay? But you can't turn around and say everybody who was there was a Nazi. Okay? Does that make sense?
No, yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
And, inversely, the people who were peacefully protesting, and this is where we're going to get out our props, some of them had communist flags, okay? How many communist protesters do you know end up being peaceful, and how many of them are ready to topple the government and install communism? Okay? Now, I'm sure there were peaceful protesters, because I know some of them were holding candles, just sitting there praying. Okay, but again, you have to draw the lines. Now, here's the question I have for you. If you wanted to go march, okay, in your home, would you have a Nazi flag where you could grab a Nazi flag and say, Fred, let's go have fun and march?
No.
Do you have an American flag at your house? Where you could say, let's go march and grab an
No,
American
actually,
flag?
I don't think I have an American flag.
You don't have American? What the
No.
hell is wrong with you,
He
Ted?
gets rid of an American flag.
We, in my
My
garage,
neighbor has one. I'll take his.
we, at my house, it's funny that you bring this up. Actually, I brought it up, but if we wanted to go march, I'm ready for almost anything. I do not own a Nazi flag, okay? I don't. But if you want, I own an American flag. Run out and grab an American flag. Own a Canadian flag, right? We could run out. Or the new symbol of hate in America, the Detroit Red Wings. I have a Detroit Red Wings flag in the garage. We could go march around in that. But you know how me and you always talk about Russia,
Mm-hmm.
okay?
Yeah.
We always talk about Russia. And
Well, it's mainly you.
yeah, mainly me. And my friend up in Minnesota, he's of Russian heritage, my friend Martin, okay? You know what he bought me as a present one year? You didn't kick out of this, okay? You saw this behind. So if we wanted to march and go to Charlottesville, we would have to go to the counter-protesters. Look what we got. We got a communist flag. Yay! So we can go march. But we have to march on the left side, okay? Now, Ted Coley. I have a communist flag in my garage. Are you shocked by this?
No.
I'm going to fold my flag back up because it's in very good condition. I take very good care of my communist flag. Okay? We would have to go march on the counter-protester side. Okay?
Yeah.
But
Good,
if we...
good steward of your
the good
communist
steward
flag.
of my communist flag. Notice how neatly I'm folding it. Okay?
With such care.
I'm glad my grandfather, he's alive. He'd come kick my ass if he knew I had that. But so we could go to the counter protest and we could wave our communist flag. Okay? Now, I don't think that's a good idea. Okay? Because once you get to communism, that's the other end of the spectrum. The Nazis say, we are going to kill you. We're going to take your life. We're going to take your rights. That's the end of freedom of speech on the right. You can't do that. On the left, on the very left, is communism. We're going to take all of your money. Everything you make is ours. Okay? That's your freedom of speech in America, on one end and on the other. Okay? So when you bust out the communist flags at the counter-protest, or if you come to Fred's house and you see the communist flag, okay, you know that there's trouble. Okay? So I have seen a couple of websites on the right say, did you see the communist flags at the counter-protests? Well, of course. They were here, right? And say you wanted to get again, I think it's illegal to buy a Nazi flag in America. But notice how, I'm getting a weird look. Is it illegal?
No, we were in Canada. That's where we saw
We were in Canada when we saw them. We saw Nazi flags in Canada. In America, you cannot have them. You know what? Maybe it's illegal to have a communist flag. We're going to have to hide this. We'll have to burn this issue of Beacon of
Nobody's
Speech.
going to know.
Yeah, nobody's going to know. Nobody's watching. But the point is that now it's not about the statues. It's all about, we want to advance the agenda on the left, the agenda on the right. The left sees an opportunity to move through and take things from the right that they hold dear. Certain things, okay? And one of the things is Confederate statues, okay? And they said 60% of the people approve of Confederate statues. Again, I don't. I'm in the minority. It says the minority of America said tear them down. Again, but the problem is, in a free society...
I mean, in a way, it's almost like trying to rewrite history.
Right. Oh, and that's exactly right.
And who was known for doing that?
The Nazis.
Well, the
And the communists. And that's the point. Once you start doing that, it's a slippery slope. So where's the line? Well, the line is that the neo-Nazis, they're evil. You have to shut them up. But you can't say these guys are neo-Nazis and they're not really neo-Nazis. You see what I'm saying? So now you're having a big free speech debate. If you stick up for, like, the alt-right, then you're an alt-right. Nobody is sticking up for free speech right now because everybody is afraid to be linked with the wrong side.
When you think about it, this has the potential to get
Really, really ugly. Yes. And that's why it's so depressing. Because, I'm sorry, I had to write something down. One of the other things, and this is what's bothering, we're going to circle back around. Me and you have talked about this on the air before. In the 80s, they said that smoking was bad. And they said ban smoking. And I said, listen, you can ban smoking if you say it's bad. Ban smoking, but be aware, once they ban smoking, they're going to ban cheeseburgers, and then they're going to ban pop, and then they're going to ban, everything else that's not water and not tofu and sprouts and stuff. Well, now we come to a generation later where they're trying to eliminate smoking. Now, again, if smoking's bad, you eliminate it. If it's not bad, you don't say, well, it's bad, but we're going to build sports stadiums based on smoking.
Yeah.
Just like alcohol.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Alcohol's bad, but... So it's either bad or it's not bad. Well, now cigarettes, it doesn't matter if it's good or bad. It's used as tax income. It's not about being good or bad anymore. Well, we can't get rid of cigarettes. You know how much income we'll lose.
Yeah.
Well, is it good or bad? Well, if it's bad, don't do it. Well, but...
Yeah, I mean, most people want the big sports stadiums, but nobody wants to pay for it. So they just find a group.
Right.
Just one group to pay for it.
So once
they demonize the group and then make
you
them pay.
demonize the group, and then again, so what they're doing is demonizing the right, and the people on the right. Holy crap! We don't want to get stuck with those guys way on the other end of the right. Go ahead, tear down whatever you want. Okay. So you have to know where the lines in the sand are, right? The line in the sand is neo-Nazis, bad, everything else, me, you, we're going to have an adult discussion. Okay? Because just like when they come for the cheeseburgers, they will not stop at the statues. Once the left starts coming in and knocking down statues, pretty soon, it's like hanging in your front yard.
Yeah.
I think Alex is laughing at us. He's saying we're crazy.
Nothing.
Oh, he's ignoring us. And the reason I bring this up is something happened at the beginning of the week, and again, just like the alcoholics and the opioid crisis, did you hear about the fired engineer at Google?
Yeah, I don't know a lot about that, but I did hear about that.
Basically, he was a young white kid. He was about 30 years old. And what he said was, women do not have the capacity to be engineers in the same numbers that men are. And I don't know exactly how he put it, but I guess Google had tried to integrate a women's program, and they said the women's program, the women engineers were not as good as the men engineers. Okay? Now, he came out and he said he had trouble with women engineers, not because he didn't like women, but their job performance was not as good as men. And it was because Google had artificial, what is it called?
Quotas?
Yeah, artificial quotas to bring in women. Now, not minorities, because, they could bring in all the people from India. They're swarmed. It wasn't specifically minorities they were having problems with. It was specifically women. And so this kid wrote, I don't think women can handle it at Google. And it went viral within Google. And the executives are like, holy crap, you can't say this. And he goes, well, I can say it because I think it's true. And I'm not saying women are inferior or I hate women. Or that we should fire the women. I'm saying that I don't think women are... I'm sorry, he did say inferior when it comes to engineering. He goes, I think women are inferior when it comes to engineering. They can do this, this, and this, but they can't do what Google needs to be done to get the job done. Okay? And he said some women, yes, but women as a group can't. Okay? Now I'm paraphrasing, so I might be off a little bit. Google came out, and they said, you cannot say this. Okay? And they fired him. Now, can they fire him?
You know what's funny? It's his opinion.
But that's the whole point. Now, when we say that freedom of speech is under attack from the right, this is what I'm talking about. They can fire him because they can fire you for anything nowadays, right?
Yeah.
We don't like your haircut, we don't like how old you are, we don't like this, that, the other. And then all of a sudden, no matter what they don't like about you, they can be like, oh, you know what, you were 4 minutes late from break, and our policy says if you're not back from break on time, you're fired. So, they had the right to fire him. But what they did is they made a martyr on the right. I'm even to my right, your left. As soon as that kid got fired, he was on like 4 or 5 places like Alex Jones. You know, the right-wing things. And this is the encroaching of the left trying to take over, blah, 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 blah. Now, we are a small operation, very small. You, me, sometimes Alex is our producer, okay? You would think that we would fly under the radar, okay?
You telling me we're not flying under the radar?
Well, I hope we're still flying under the radar.
Why, do you know something?
No. But this week, they fired this kid at Google. And again, he had the right to say it, but Google says we have the right to have a uniform speech, here, and we say that you got to go, right? So he became a martyr. He went off and went on all these alt-right websites and say, they're curbing my freedom of speech.
What are they going to do? Just give you a handbook of all the things you can say?
Yes, and that's exactly right. That's where we're going in America. Okay? Now,
and that doesn't necessarily mean that I agree with him.
Right. And like I said, I disagree with him too, because, again, he comes off as like a pompous little snot. Okay? So I don't know him. But you would think if he had a good performance and he wasn't saying round up women and shove them in the ovens, right? He was saying this is how I feel. And they said, well, you know what? We don't care how you feel, you're fired. Okay? It didn't have anything to do with his performance, didn't have anything to do. They were curtailing his speech. Okay? Now, corporations do that all the time. It doesn't hit the newspaper like when Google does it. But they keep pointing out these little examples how things are chipping away. And I also read something that says, well, Google has free speech to present a uniform message to the public. Well, once you're talking about uniform messages, what are we talking about, Ted, once we talk about uniform messages? Oh, I don't know what we're talking about when we talk about uniform messages. So like I said, everything I've read, nobody is looking at the other side or the big picture. It's like, now that Trump is president, there is chaos, and people are like, holy cow, we're going to do this, this, and this, and Trump is going to keep stepping in it because that guy can't stay out of his own way. You saw that he fired his number one guy today, right?
Bannon
got fired, and basically Bannon came out and said North Korea, he basically said we were a little too aggressive on North Korea. Okay? Now, whether you believe that or not, I don't know if I believe that or not. Oh, free plug for Arby's. Free speech in Arby's. But, so he's stepping in it, and nobody wants to hear what anybody else has to say at this point. Go ahead.
No, you said that you wrote an article defending Trump, didn't you?
Yes. My article defending Trump said, even if Trump is, when he said there was two sides, okay? And my wife is 100% 10% right. The Nazis that were there, there's no good Nazis, right? They're just not. But were they all Nazis who were there? Okay? If they were a run-of-a-mill, let's say they were a run-of-a-mill American, right? And it's in Virginia, right? And who's to say Robert E. Lee's great-great-grandson wasn't there, right? I don't know that for a fact. I don't know one way or the other, okay? It goes back to the Sodom and Gomorrah analogy. I don't think everybody there was Nazis. Now, were there Nazis there? Absolutely. But were they all Nazis? Okay? I don't know. And to be honest with you, I'm not taking a poll. Okay? Let's say, well, how many of you,
You're not going down there and
Yeah, well, 15% were Nazis and 32% were just straight anarchists.
I could see you in the crowd. How many of you are Nazis? Raise
You
your hand.
got the kid with the slick back hair and the bangs. He was like, "I'm sorry, sir. I'm taking a poll. Do you consider yourself an alt-right? Who do you like better, Alex Jones or Glenn Beck?" So he stepped in it when he said that. Okay, but what I'm saying is that you don't know who was there. And on the left, they made it sound like the girl who got run over sounded like she just went there to pray and hold candles. Okay, she sounded like a good person. Okay, now somebody might write in and say no, she was horrible. She kicked her dog or whatever. Okay, and the reason I yanked out my communist flag is people who show up at rallies with communist flags are not there to peacefully protest. They're just not. Okay?
So you're saying there were people who showed up with communist flags as
There were people who
counter-protesters.
and counter-protesters showed up with clubs.
So she was in that group, but she wasn't necessarily a communist. She was in the counter-protest.
She was in the counter-protest.
But that group that was there with her, there were some communists.
Right. So, and it goes back to you don't know who was in that group. Now, again, he stepped in it, but now everything's disintegrating, and now people are like, we're not racist, tear down that statue. We're not racist, tear down that statue. Okay? Again, that's fine. If at the end of the day we tear down all the statues, you're like, racism's over. We solved the problem. But I don't think that solves the problem.
No.
And again, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they tear down all the statues and all of a sudden a rainbow comes out and we all start holding hands and we all start dancing in the streets and say racism's over. We love everybody of all creeds and colors. Then I'll be the first one. I'll grab a sledgehammer, we're going to tear down. You know what? Just for a spirit of cooperation, if we're all going to dance and sing and rainbows come out, I'm going to go knock down the statue of Perry in Sandusky. Okay? I know he was a northerner, but if it means American peace, I'll tear down some Union soldier statues too. In the spirit of cooperation with the Confederates there. Yeah, Ted's smirking because he knows I'm being sarcastic. But banging out statues, that sounds like fun, right? But no, my wife's giving me a weird look in the other room. Can I go knock down Perry's statue in Sandusky?
I don't know what that is.
She just said she doesn't know about Perry's statue in Sandusky. Perry was a great admiral for the Americans against Canadians.
Once you knock down the Jim Thome statue.
We're gonna knock down the Jim Thome. Well, but that's the whole
I don't know
thing.
who that is.
Okay, let me tell you a story. I'm glad you brought that up.
I'm picturing you downtown pulling the Bob Feller statue down.
I like Bob Feller. Bob Feller is a great American. He fought for America in World War II. Bob Feller would be offended that I had that communist
That
flag
would
in my
be
house.
something that would bring both sides together against you.
Yeah. Bob Feller is coming to my
See,
house.
not Nazis marching with communists.
The Nazis and the
against
communists.
Fred.
We hate beacon of speech, the Nazis and communists. That's why I need to get Nazis and communists on my... Well, that's the thing. After Trump stepped in it, right, they said that Michael Moore and somebody else. I can't remember who the famous actor. They were protesting Trump Tower, and I'm like, yeah, you know what? Michael Moore was going to protest Trump Tower anyhow. He's not really doing anything out of the ordinary. Again, it's another pub grab. How can I get on TV while I'm protesting Donald Trump? But you unknowingly made a good analogy. Did you know that? You made a great point. Bob Feller's a great American. You cannot say a bad word about Bob Feller. He was a great pitcher during World War II. He quit baseball, signed up to join to fight the Nazis. And he lost the 4 best years of his career fighting Nazis. Okay, we built a statue of him, one of the greatest pitchers in Cleveland Indians history. Now, Bob Feller was a great American. Okay? Jim Thome was an opportunist. Okay? Jim Thome put up home run numbers, right?
So it's just those two that have a statue, right? Or is there somebody else there too?
They were talking about doing a statue for Larry Doby, but I don't think that's happened yet.
So it's just the two of them.
Yeah, I believe it's just the two. Jim Thome.
No Omar Vizquel or
No. Oh, I love Omar Vizquel. I'm working on an article, so put Omar Vizquel in the Hall of Fame. Okay, so that's going to be done by next spring. Okay, now my wife over there, we'll drag her back in. My wife.
What, the article will be done, or he'll be in the Hall of Fame by next spring?
The article will be done. He won't be in the Hall of Fame. He deserves it. Crystal, when you used to go down to the flats, did you ever see Omar Vizquel there hitting on girls, or just Jose Mesa?
Just Jose Mesa.
Just Jose Mesa.
Yeah, just Jose Mesa.
Oh,
But you said you saw him there a lot, right?
A couple times.
Yeah. My wife, when she used to go to the flat, she used to see Jose Mesa down there, and she said that she thought it was weird that he'd be down there like all the time. But Omar Vizquel had a reputation to be down in the flats a lot too. But anyhow, Jim Thome, in the prime of his career, he had hit 1 million home runs. Okay, his contract came up, and he was crying. Right, he's like, "I'm gonna be an Indian for life. I love the Cleveland Indians." Okay. Mark Shapiro went up to Jim Thome. You're Jim Thome. Says, I'm going to give you a contract for 4 years, $40 million. You said you want to be an Indian for life. Put your money where your mouth is. Right? Did Jim Thome sign that 4-year, $40 million contract?
No.
No. Jim Thome said, you insult me. Get out of my office. Now, I'm paraphrasing. Okay? But Mark Shapiro's like, hey, this is a negotiation. Don't be like that. Go ahead and test the open market. Jim Thome went to other teams, and at the Philadelphia Phillies, he got like, and again, I might be off on the numbers a little bit, but you get the gist. Jim Thome said, the Phillies are going to pay me 5 years, $60 million. Okay? Went back to the Indians and said, will you match 5 years, $60 million? Right? Mark Shapiro says, you know what, Jim, you're a great guy. We know you would never screw us. You said you want to be an Indian for life. I went and I talked to the owner. He said he'll give you 5 years, $60 million, because you are a good man.
Was that roughly the amount?
Yeah.
'Cause
And
I can't remember.
well, like I said, I might be a little off, but
Well, not if you are off, you're not off by much,
Yeah.
right?
so thank you, Jim Thome, for giving us a chance to match it. The owner says, thank you, you're a great Indian. Go ahead and sign right here, 5 years, $60 million. What did Jim Thome do?
He left.
Yeah, he left. He said, I think I'm going to think about it. Okay? He went home, says, I'm going to talk to my wife about 5 years, $60 million. And then after he talked to his wife, he went back to the Phillies and said, you know what, the Indians matched your offer, and I'm going to stay in Cleveland unless you gave me 6 years and $80 million. Okay? And the Phillies are like, 6 years, $80 million. Okay, give me. Yeah, okay. 6 years, $80 million. And again, I could be a little off. It could be 75, 84, whatever. Right? Next day, Jim Thome goes back to the Indians, and they think they're getting him for 5 years, $60 million. Right? And the Indians are like, Jim, all you have to do is sign the contract, 5 years, $60 million. And he goes, yeah, I know I said I was going to talk to my wife, But then I called the Phillies back, and they said they'd give me 6 years and $80 million. But if you match, I'll sign your contract. And they said, what did you do? And they said, well, I went back to the Phillies, and they added, and they said, and the Indians figured out right then, right, like the little light bulb went on right above their head. And they said, even if we give them 6 years, $80 million, guess what's going to happen? He's going to turn around and go back to the Phillies and ask for 7 years, $100 million. They figured out right then and there, light bulb went on.
Who knew that Jim Thome was such a good negotiator?
Yeah. Well, oh, shucks, I just hit baseballs. Right? So the Indians said, you know what, Jim Thome? You've been a great Indian. Have fun in Philadelphia. Because they figured out no matter what they were going to do, that the Phillies were going to keep jacking it up. Right? So Jim Thome came out and he goes, oh, Cleveland, they didn't have enough money. And he goes, my wife is, you remember this clip from the Trevisano show? My wife is my rock, and she said we should go to Philadelphia. And he played the aw shucks card. Jim Thome is the last guy who should have a statue. I would give.
Now that you're reminding me of all of this, now I'm mad about that statue.
Well, yeah, but that's the whole point. Crystal's laughing at us.
It should be Omar Vizquel.
But that's the whole point of my story. Why are you building the statues to anybody? Okay, you say let's tear down a statue. You know what the first I don't give a flying flip about Robert E. Lee. Okay, you say Fred, I'm going to give you a sledgehammer. You get to take down one statue. You know the first statue I'm going to? I'm going to the Jim Thome statue, and I'm knocking that bastard down. Okay? Because he represents what America is really today. And then, again, when he cried on TV and he's like, oh, my wife said that we'll have a better lifestyle. And you're a scumbag. You're a scumbag like the rest of them. And then you play it all off. Oh, they built me a statue. Oh, shucks, Cleveland's great. You remember, who else used to have a really good rep? Was Brett Favre. Oh, I'm just a great guy, and I just want to sling the football around. And then all of a sudden they caught him sexting reporters, like sending pictures of his penis to ESPN reporters. They're like, oh, Brett Favre might not be a great guy. Oh, no. No, when his tight end was raping teenage girls in Green Bay, you didn't say anything? It's the same thing with the statues. You want to tear down a statue? People in Cleveland love Jim Thome, and I would have never built a statue for him. Okay? Jim Thome represents capitalist greed more than anybody else I know in Cleveland. They built him a statue. Well, all of a sudden, you could start saying you tear down the statue of Robert E. Lee, other people are going to tear down statues that they don't like. If I get to tear down the statue, I'm tearing down the Jim Thome statue. And then there'll be a bunch of people who are like, I love Jim Thome. Fred's a Nazi. No. No, I'm not. But that's, again, and we'll use the Jim, we're going to keep going with the Jim Thome vein. If I run down with a sledgehammer down to Cleveland Indian State or Progressive Field, I take a sledgehammer, I bash the Jim Thome statue into the ground.
Maybe they should put a statue of Jose Mesa in the flats.
If I pound that Jim Thome statue into the ground, are they still going to have greedy athletes trying to screw people out of every red cent in America? Greedy athletes trying to sign $60, $80 million contracts. And Ted's laughing. You can see me with the sledgehammer wailing and wailing and wailing. And the whole thing is, and another thing that makes me mad about Jim Thome is Omar Vizquel is one of the best fielders in the history of baseball. They don't want to let him in the Baseball Hall of Fame, okay? Jim Thome, he was so bad on the infield, they had to move his position.
Oh, remember when he started off at third base?
Yeah, and I think they said he led the league in errors the one year.
Every other throw went into the
and they said it was like his glove was on backwards. That's how he fielded, right? You're going to build a guy who doesn't know how to hold a baseball mitt and build him a statue and put him in the Hall of Fame. Jim Thome is probably going to go in the Hall of Fame before Omar Vizquel. Now, again, in the grand scheme of things...
Well, people like home runs, man.
Chicks dig the home run. That's what Ted Coley says. But the whole thing about Charlottesville, again, it's going to spin out of control. And somebody said Trump was going to quit. And I'm like, there's no way Trump is going to quit. Because he didn't quit when he said...
Trump's not a quitter.
Yeah, he's too stupid to quit. Okay? Now, this week, I never asked you, so I apologize. Do you have any, since you voted for him, do you want to say anything one way or the other about Trump?
No, I think he's doing a good job.
Well, I read something on CNN this week, and it said that 1/3 of his supporters said they don't care what he does. He's doing a good job. Okay? And again, I don't agree with that. But again, there's people out there, and they're
No, I'm not mad at him.
You're gonna get. Oh, but here's the point of my story.
I'm gonna get what?
No, we said we were too small to get banned, right? So I read articles from 2014. There's neo-Nazi bands out there, okay? And I guess they go out and sing Hitler's Great and stuff like that, okay? Now, I'm not, of all the horrible bands that I listen to, okay, there's like 20 of these neo-Nazi bands. I guess, I don't know who they are. I only saw the list. And when I looked at them, luckily there are no bands that I listen to. I know there are no bands you listen to. But Spotify, which is kind of like Pandora or, it's another music service, they said they're going to ban all neo-Nazi bands, okay? Which is great, but some of those bands had like 6, 8, 10 followers, okay? Can you think of any sites that only have 6, 8, 10 followers? Okay? Now, once they start, and again, you should definitely ban the people who say we are Nazis, go kill Jews, right? I'm not having a problem with that, okay? But some of these sites, when Spotify says they're going to ban these bands only have 8 or 10 followers. So when they say we're going to ban Nazis, it's like literally banning the air. They're banning something that people don't listen to.
Mm-hmm.
So it's more of a PR group, a PR thing, and again, it goes back to Spotify saying we have the right to stop hate speech. Okay? Well, then where is the line for hate speech? Right here, it's today. Who's to say they're not going to move it this way tomorrow? You see, and that's why you got to watch out. And so when I'm looking at these bands, I'm like, no, these bands are bands that nobody's ever heard of. Okay? I listened to a punk band from Michigan last week, and I think some of the songs on it, they had like 100 views, right, on their videos. I mean, the band I was listening to was huge compared to some of these Nazi bands. And it's like, you're literally banning nothing. You're doing PR, is what you're doing. Now, on the right,
So you're saying you're doing a commercial for him by doing that?
yeah, you're basically doing a commercial because you're banning air. Okay. I'm trying to think of serial killers. Okay. Me and you, we pick a song of the day every day at the end of the thing, and sometimes it's songs you like, some I like, and sometimes they're songs you've never heard of, right? Well, that's like me coming out and beacon a speech saying, you know what? I'm coming out against mass murderers, okay? So from now on, Beacon of Speech has a strict policy, no songs by serial killers, okay? Now, how many songs did I just ban?
None?
Yeah, probably 2 or 3 by Charles Manson, and that's it, okay? So it's an empty gesture is what it is, okay? Now, serial killers are evil, right? But how many serial killers had top 40 hits? How many of them had small hits? How many of them had small bands? Me and you, I've told you a story of mayhem about the guy who killed himself and then the guitarist ate his brains. Okay? Well, even they weren't serial killers, okay? They were just deranged Norwegian black metal guys. Okay? And people still listen to mayhem, and that's a scary thing. Spotify did not ban mayhem. Okay, they banned these groups and again, Jeffrey Dahmer. All songs by Jeffrey Dahmer are all banned on Beacon of Speech. My wife is
Now I
smiling.
support you.
My wife supports me. No more Jeffrey Dahmer songs. Hey, you want to know some trivia, Crystal? I don't know if I told you or not. You know Tracy too? Her mom went to school with Jeffrey Dahmer. They said they used to pick on him because he was a little nerdy kid.
Yeah, and now they're making a movie about him and filming it at my old high school.
That's right. Did you hear that?
No.
They're doing a movie, My Friend Dahmer, about Jeffrey Dahmer. Because, again, he grew up in Bath, Ohio.
Yeah.
And again, my ex-girlfriend's mom went to school with him. And there was a graphic writer, and his name is Durf. Okay? Durf went to school with Jeffrey Dahmer, and he was friends with Jeffrey Dahmer. And afterwards, he became a graphic novelist, and he wrote a story, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, and it's My Friend Jeffrey. Okay? And again, he knew him before he was a serial killer, but not by a lot. You know, he knew him when he was like 14. He became a serial killer at 18.
Was he in because he moved to what, Milwaukee or
He moved to
something?
Milwaukee.
Is that where all the murders
Yes.
took place?
All but one or two.
What, one or two took place here? Or
When
Bath?
he was 18 years old, he was in Richfield or Bath or whatever.
Mhm.
He picked up a hitchhiker in Medina County, killed him, and ate him. Okay? And then he was having troubles, right? Because he was a serial killer. And he went to live in Milwaukee because I can't remember. His parents got divorced. One of them moved to Milwaukee, so he wanted to be in Milwaukee. And then
Yeah,
he killed.
because that usually solves the problem.
Oh yeah,
when you-
yeah. Then he killed the other 18. So it was like one from Medina County, and then the other 18 were from Milwaukee. Okay. But the point of the story is that Durf did the story about my friend Dahmer. And again, aren't we having a great time on Beacon of Speech talking about serial killers? So they're actually filming the movie in Ohio, and they're making a movie about the graphic novel that Durf wrote about his friend Jeffrey Dahmer. And not only are they filming it, but they are filming it at my wife's old high school in Berea. Millburg Heights. I'm sorry. Millburg Heights. Isn't that awesome?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so more good times on Beacon of Speech. So, we have a strict policy, and don't let me back off on this, okay? No songs by serial killers ever on because we are against evil serial killers.
So is Middleburg Heights, is that Mid Park then?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's Middleburg Heights and Brook Park.
Yes.
Okay.
What it is it's a big square, right? And 1/3 is Brook Park, 1/3 is Berea, 1/3 is Millburg Heights.
Yeah, now it's all three.
Yeah.
When I was there, it was just
Yeah, it
Heights
used to be
Park.
Mid Park and Berea, and then they closed Mid Park and made it the middle school. And so now there's only one high school for the three cities.
Oh man.
So, and that's where your mom or dad went to Berea?
Both of them.
They went to Berea. Crystal's parents went to Berea. And, you know who else went to Berea? I'll give you a hint. He does Beacon of Speech with us.
Joe?
Yeah. Joe went to Berea.
No, he went to Mid Park.
I thought he went to Berea.
No, he graduated with nails.
Well, then how come he's always talking smack about Berea?
I don't know. He went to Mid Park.
Oh, he went to Mid Park? Okay, Joe went to Mid Park. So they're filming the Jeffrey Dahmer story at Joe's school, too. All right. So, back to serial killers. Do you come out against serial killers?
Yes.
All right. Now, you came out against serial killers rather quickly. Do you want to think about it for 2 days and decide whether you want to come out against serial killers? And that's how Trump stepped in it. So he stepped in it because he didn't come right out. But you could also argue, and if my father-in-law was here, he would argue, that Obama, when Black Lives Matter was burning cities down, that he did not come out against the violence fast enough. You see what I'm
Yeah.
saying? But things didn't go to hell in a handbasket when Obama was slow. So,
When Obama was what?
slow condemning things. And again, you know, you can set the agenda by what you condemn and what you don't condemn and blah, 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 blah. it all circles back around to speech. And again, Trump was clumsy, he was offline, but if he had any skill as an orator,
He's not a politician.
yeah, if he was an orator, he would say we need to unite, we can't be divisive. You can't come out and say, you know, there's good and bad. And again, as clumsy as I am, I'm not professional either. You know, I'm basically up on my soapbox with the megaphone. I've used the analogy over and over, screaming all the time, blah, 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 blah. Okay? You would think that somebody who's a president of a CEO of a multinational corporation would have better orator skills, or better skills communicating than he does. Okay? But like I said, you think he's doing fine. We're not gonna go on. Now that I'm thoroughly bummed out, I hope we don't have to talk about this on next Speaking of Speech. I hope things get sorted out. I don't think they're gonna be. I see people rolling their eyes in the background. And things are not gonna get sorted out. Well, I'll be fast because I'm gonna change the subject. Okay? Michael Moore is marching on Trump Tower. Okay? What Michael Moore should be smart enough to know, but he doesn't, is let's say that Trump is like, you know what? I really got a headache here. I don't need these headaches. I could go have $10,000 hookers do unspeakable things to me in Moscow. Right? And I don't have to deal with any of this crap. Okay? I quit. Okay? Everybody on the left would throw a huge party, you know, America say victory, blah, blah, blah. The problem is, if he does that, who becomes the president?
Pence.
Yes. I believe...
Not Hillary.
Yeah. Most people out there think, well, if Trump loses, they just put Hillary in. I'm telling you here and now, this is a warning. I'm going to write it down. This is a warning, because I don't know if Trump's going to make it.
Is this our first warning?
Yeah, Speaking of Speech warning. First one.
Or is this a watch?
You people on the left, okay? I'm pointing at the camera.
He's pointing to the left.
You people on the left, Pence is worst. You are in for a world of hurt if you get Pence. Don't go. You're going to wish you had Donald Trump back when you get Pence in there.
Trump's not going to quit, is he?
No, he's not smart enough. Now, again, you know how me and you were talking about how people have their own interests? Trump would not quit because people said, you have to quit, right? He might quit one day and be like, you know what? This really sucks doing all this work and dealing with all this stuff and people calling me an idiot. You know, I am probably the hardest working man in America. And
well, when you think about it, what you just said, isn't that pretty much everybody's job is like that?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So at some point, if he's like, you know what, I don't need this headache. I got money in the bank. I can do whatever. He wouldn't quit because you told him to quit. He would quit because he'd be like, oh, well, you know what, I can go take all my money out of the bank and I can roll on it naked in my bed in honey. And I don't need this aggravation. He wouldn't quit because you told him to. He would quit because he's like, I don't like working. I don't like working that much. I'm 70 years old. I don't need this aggravation. And again, you don't know where his threshold is. I mean, they could literally get 1 million people on the front lawn of the White House. He'd be like, I love being in charge. Screw all 1 million of you. Okay? And that's how I feel.
I think that's what Nixon did for a while.
Well, but now you're getting into Nixon territory.
I just remember seeing a picture of the White House, like when Nixon was, you know, during like his final days or whatever.
Yeah.
And there was like a big U-Haul truck parked right in front of it that said "Impeach Nixon."
Yeah. Well, and that's it.
I just
That's the
picture
whole thing.
Nixon like looking outside and
But-
seeing that.
But Nixon broke the law, and he knew he was in a world of hurt. Okay, he's like, I'm, you know. One other thing. I want you to look at my shirt. You know what it says?
Barcelona.
Yeah, Barcelona. FC Barcelona is a soccer club in Spain. Bless you. What happened yesterday in Barcelona?
There was a terrorist attack.
Terrorist attack in Barcelona. We're talking about tearing down statues. There are real terrorist attacks going on in Spain. There was the first terrorist attack, and the second terrorist attack in Barcelona. And then this morning in Finland, a guy screaming Allah Akbar went into a crowd of women and started stabbing them with long knives. Okay? We are worried about statues in America. What is the problem here? Which goes back to 1 in 8 alcoholics, opiate addicts, blah, 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 and we're worried about statues. Now, you could say racism is a real thing in America, and I wouldn't disagree with you. But again, I'm going to circle back around. Tearing down the statues does not solve racism. If it did, we'd tear them all down now. I don't fucking care. I try not to swear, but it's... I said it in the article. It's not about the statues.
Yeah, that's a manufactured problem.
It is a... Yes.
Somebody running you over with a car is a real problem.
Yeah, or stabbing you or your daughter in a crowd, right? Now, they'd be like, oh, well, they ran you over in a car at the counter protest. Ted, how many times have you been at work, right? And me and you have been talking off the record, and no matter what the protest is, okay, no matter what it's been the whole time that we work together, it must be nice to have time to go protest stuff, okay? It must be nice to protest for or against the statue. Now, if they're rounding people up and they're putting them in concentration camps, well, then you should be marching. You should do everything you can. Okay? But marching for statues is absurd. As you can see, I'm just, like I said, it is so depressing. Like, when I turn on Beacon of Speech, I'm like, I can't believe that people don't see some of this. And again, I'm all for ending racism. I just don't know how pulling down statues will do it. All right. Ted, came across an article on Cleveland.com. We're going to talk a little bit about classic rock. You ready to talk about classic rock?
Yes.
Cleveland.com said there were 50 frontmen, the 50 best frontmen in the history of rock and roll.
Now, how did they come up with this order? Do you know?
Nope. Cleveland.com
I mean,
was
this something that people voted on?
Nope.
Or
Nope. Nope.
You don't even know who it was that came up with it?
Nope. Cleveland.com. I looked to see who the author was. They didn't even have an author, right? Guys at Cleveland.com came up with the 50 best frontmen in rock and roll history, and then they put videos of each one of their shows, 1 through 50, and they just had the name. You didn't see any description in any of them. Now, I have read, I think, Rolling Stone, 50 top frontmen, right? And my 50 frontmen were not on top. But you were happy because they skewered towards the, excuse me, the 70s. Would you say that's fair?
Oh, yeah.
So they skewered towards classic rock. Nobody on this list was within the last 10 years. Nobody. Okay? But we'll go 10 to 1. And you've already seen the list, so I won't ask you. Number 10 was Ozzy Osbourne. 9 was Jim Morrison. 8 was Axl Rose. 7, Kurt Cobain. 6, Jimi Hendrix. 5, Roger Daltrey. 4, Iggy Pop. 3, Robert Plant. 2, Mick Jagger. 1, Freddie Mercury. Now, I don't necessarily disagree with it. I would agree with Freddie Mercury. Freddie Mercury's awesome. Okay? I have no problem with them being number 1. I would kind of like to see the article like, we came up with Freddie Mercury because blah, 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 and he had range, and he had command, and he held the stage, and he was on, however you want to do it, okay? But they literally just had a picture and a name, Freddie Mercury number 1. Well, if you never heard of rock and roll, you'd be like, who's Freddie Mercury, right? Well, you could have at least said lead singer of Queen, right? But they didn't say any of that. You saw the article. And like you said, well, what's the prerequisites? A lot of those articles are like, we research day and night. No, Cleveland.com just basically slapped it. It was one of the laziest. This is coming from Beacon of Speech. I put more effort in Beacon of Speech than they put on for the 50 frontmen for Cleveland.com. Okay? Now, out of the top 10, who is the one you had, and I'm asking, we just named it, who is the guy you had the biggest problem with out of the top 10?
Out of the top 10?
Out of the top 10, who's the guy who does not belong? We're playing Sesame Street. Oh, one of these are not like the others.
Wait a minute.
And there is no right answer. It's how you feel. Which one is not like the others?
Well, now I'm going to say this, and I could be wrong. I'm only saying this because I don't really know anything about him. Iggy Pop.
Okay. So
Because
you say-
he might be a great frontman. I just don't really know him.
Okay. Now, I'm going to ask Ted questions. Okay, you listen? I'm going to ask Ted questions. Ted Coley, you used to be lead singer of Wasted Space. Is that correct? Wasted Space with a Y.
Yes, yeah.
While you were singing, did you ever take off your shirt, break a bottle on the stage, and cut yourself on the stage?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you did.
No.
No. That was one of Iggy Pop's things. Break the bottle, cut the thing, and, I'm going to take off my clothes, and, I'm on the edge. Okay? Now, I like Iggy Pop. I would probably put him in the top 20. I don't know if I would put him at number 4 next to Robert Plant. Okay, because when I think of Robert Plant, I think of a guy who just emotes from here to the end of the world. Okay? When I think of Iggy Pop, you know what I think of? The story I just told you, cutting a piece of glass and cutting it across your chest. Okay? Now, Iggy Pop would say I was young and blah, blah, blah. I read other stories of things that he did on stage were not that far off. Okay?
Now, you asked me which one out of these top 10 do not belong. What would be your answer?
Let's see. Well, Jim Morrison belongs because he's got a great voice. I would probably say this guy, Mick Jagger.
Really?
Yeah, because I'm gonna turn it around. Now, when I was growing up, do you remember hearing that some people like the Beatles? Some people like the Beatles. Some people like the Rolling Stones.
Mm-hmm. That's me and my brother.
Yeah, my mom. We listened to the Beatles all the time, and we never listened to Rolling Stones ever. Okay, the only Rolling Stones I heard was on the radio, and there's some Rolling Stones songs I like and some I don't like. Okay, but I'm looking at this list, and we got the list. Now, unless they're way down at like number 39, did you remember seeing Paul McCartney on that list?
No, and the thing is that I know why, because you don't know who the front man was in the Beatles.
But
you had two of them.
Who's the front man of Wings?
Well, Paul McCartney.
Paul McCartney. It don't matter. It doesn't matter who's the front man. And who's the front man of after John Lennon left the Beatles and he sang Imagine, who was the lead singer? It was just him, right? Now, they could say, well, it was of bands. Well, Wings was a band, right? And Iggy Pop, he was basically, Iggy Pop. You know what I mean? He wasn't in the Iggy Pop band. Jimi Hendrix was the lead singer of the Jimi Hendrix Experiment, but you see what I'm saying, right? So when they say frontmen, Mick Jagger's all sexual and stuff, but I'm like, well, if you don't have Paul McCartney or John Lennon anywhere, I didn't see him on any of the lists.
I'll tell you something else. One of these guys should be bumped for David Lee Roth.
David Lee Roth was on the list.
I know he was on there, but he
way
should be
down at like number 22.
He should be
something.
in the top 10 as opposed to at least one of those guys.
Right. And I would agree because when Van Halen was on top of their game, David Lee Roth was right there.
Yeah.
Right? Now, some of my favorite guys, okay? Now.
And this isn't top 50 singers. This is top 50 frontmen.
Yeah.
In other words,
frontmen. We're the ones who own the stage.
Right.
And again, back to Paul McCartney, when Wings was on there, he wasn't sitting back while the rest of the, Paul McCartney was basically Wings. It was him doing everything, and then his wife and all these other guys slugging him around in the back. Okay? My dog is upside down over there. He's not growling, is he?
No, he keeps climbing on me every time
Oh,
I start
okay.
petting him.
And again, Ozzy Osbourne, he started out with Black Sabbath, but then he was the lead singer of his own band. He was, Ozzy Osbourne, Blizzard of Oz, right? So, but again, it goes back to what you said. Well, what's the qualifications? Well, the article doesn't say. It just says 50 frontmen, 1 to 50. And like I said, if we wanted to, I'll tell you what, Ted. You want to have some fun? We could do 50 frontmen, okay? We could have some fun at Cleveland.com's expense, okay? And we'll do a Beacon of Speech article. 50 frontmen according to Beacon of Speech, okay? And you are going to regret doing this because I will find some obscure ass person, okay? According to Beacon of Speech, and we're going to do qualifications, and we'll do heavily researched by Fred, and we'll include Joe in this. Okay, that'll be our project. See if we can come up with a better list than Cleveland.com. Do you like that?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll have some fun at their expense, and then because you're not on very many of the articles, we'll make sure that we put your name on the article too. Okay, we'll come up with our criteria, and I'm going to tell you people I would vote for who are on the Cleveland.com list. Number 1. At number 50 was Scott Weiland. How you say it?
Why?
Scott Weiland, okay? I am not the biggest Stone Temple Pilots fan, okay? I just wasn't, okay? But my wife said we should go see him. They came to Cleveland. I'll tell you what, I don't know if I have ever seen a guy own the stage like that guy did when we were there. I mean, that guy, he was like a big, giant personality on the stage. He owned the front of it. Would you say that's true? He owned the stage when we were at that concert. And I wasn't their biggest fan either. Mm-hmm. You know, I never bought an STP album. Like I said, they're my wife's band that she liked. But I'll tell you what, we'll do it. Now, one of my favorite, Trent Reznor, he was way down at number 33. Okay? Now, if you start, we're gonna have to set down the parameters. Okay? We're gonna start at Rock Around the Clock. Rock Around the Clock.
Bill Haley?
Bill Haley. Okay, now, was Bill Haley on the list?
I don't know. I don't think so, but I don't know.
So we'll start at Bill Haley, and...
Wait a minute. Was Elvis on the list?
No! That was what I was just going to say. When you think of the first rock and roll star, you don't think of Bill Haley. You think of Elvis. Elvis wasn't on the list. So how in the world...
Well, you know what I think might be the problem with that is that frontman means like leader of a band. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
But
It's
then-
like those guys were almost just like one person, even though they had a band.
But it goes back to Iggy Pop. When you think of Iggy Pop, do you think of the Iggy Pop band?
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? So, and...
Well, you know what else? Was Prince on there?
I don't think Prince was on there.
Because Prince is... No.
But I'll tell you what we'll do. I'll set up the parameters. I'll do the groundwork, and we'll lay it down, and then we'll cross things off the. You're not writing stuff down to us, are you? Okay. Oh, I thought my wife was making a list. Because if she was making a list, she would pick the guy from Arcade Fire, and she'd be like,
What's the list?
The 50 best frontmen in rock and roll history. And so, again, there's nobody from today. You know what I mean? If my daughter was down here, she would come down, she'd be like, lead singer of Panic at the Disco. Well, I don't know. Maybe so. But the list was very heavy towards the 70s and 80s. And that's one of the things that drives me crazy.
Then go for Bowie. Come on.
Was Bowie on the list?
I don't know. I didn't see.
I didn't see Bowie on the list either.
Well, you know what kind of blows my theory out of the water is Janis Joplin was on there.
Janis Joplin was on.
So if she was on there, then Elvis should be on there, and Prince. You know what I mean? That kind of.
But at the beginning, Janis Joplin was the lead singer of, what was their band? Crystal?
Big Brother and the Holding Company.
Big Brother and Holding Company. She was the lead singer of their band for, what, 1 or 2 albums? And then she's like, I'm too big for this, and left. And she wasn't a jerk about it. She just, she had to spread her wings and fly, or whatever analogy Janis Joplin would use. So, I'm sorry, when we lived in Minnesota, there was a girl that we worked with at Taco Bell, and she used to say that she was the reincarnation of Janis Joplin. And yeah, I know.
Ooh.
I don't remember, some little blonde girl. I think it was one of the Shelton girls. But, she used to say she was the reincarnation of Janis Joplin, and she always felt like a canary in a cage. But, she needed to be like Janis. She needed to
Canary in a
spring
coal mine.
Yeah, a canary in a coal mine. Yeah, that's a different analogy. Okay, so we're gonna do that next, and we're gonna hash it out, and then we're gonna make it very confrontational, where it's yours versus mine, and break it down by. And like I said, you have to have somebody from today. Like, who's the greatest singer today, right? Who on the radio? Okay. You know, it's the leader of Spotify. It's Jay-Z. You know.
Michael Bublé.
Ted, you're gonna be so. I have been so bummed out with the last 2 articles I wrote. Okay, both of them are just depressing as hell. Okay, so I got another one I'm working on, even more depressing. Well, it's not even more depressing. Let me ask you a quick question. The one I'm working on should be done in the next couple of days. Body Count. Do you know who Body Count is?
No.
Body Count is a metal band from 1992. Their lead singer you might have heard of. His name is Ice-T. Are you familiar with Ice-T?
Yes.
Ice-T came out and he says, you know what, I'm going to rap over some heavy metal riffs. I'm going to name my band Body Count, right? And in 1992, they released their first album, Body Count, okay? And another awesome story for our depressing as hell.
Is Ice-T the one you're kind of afraid of?
Oh, yeah, I'm afraid of Ice-T, yes.
But not Ice Cube, right?
No, Ice Cube. I'm not afraid of him. Maybe a little. I'm getting faces.
Why are you afraid of them?
Ice-T in 1992, and this is where we're gonna circle back around. Okay.
Who wasn't there a guy in the Browns, Ice Cube? What was it, Gerald McNeil?
Gerald McNeil was an awesome kick returner. He was the Ice Cube. Yes, he's a different Ice Cube, and they call him the Ice Cube because he was 5'8" and 140 pounds. He played in the NFL. He was great. Gerald the Ice Cube McNeil.
Yep.
What's the point of my story? Oh, Body Count, 1992. They released a song called Cop Killer. Do you remember the song Cop Killer?
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Guess who owned that tape when the crap hit the fan?
What, you?
I did. I owned Cop Killer. So I actually own it. Do you want to see it? I know right where it's at, I think. You want me to go look? You want me to
Sure.
go get it? Okay. Don't go anywhere. You're going to have to vamp for time for 30 seconds. Vamp for time.
Fred is going to look for
Do
his
shadow puppets.
Cop Killer tape, and he better be quick about it.
I'm running. Keep vamping.
Tick tock, Fred.
You still vamping?
No.
Alright, Papa says this is an easy fix, right?
Come in.
Changing the battery.
Are you still there? Are you still vamping?
I'm still here.
Are you still vamping?
I ran out of things to say.
I can't find it. I know it's somewhere. Okay. Anyhow, you remember when you went and got your CDs or your your 78?
Yeah.
I have my Ride the Lightning original tape that I had from 1984. Right? Ride the Lightning. You want to listen to this? You know how many times I listened to this? Trapped Under Ice and the rest of Metallica? That's from 1984.
Wow.
Okay. And this is from 1987. Red Hot Chili Peppers, the Uplift Mofo Party Plan. Okay. So, in 1992, I bought the tape, Cop Killer by, I bought the tape Body Count by the band Body Count. The last song on the tape is Cop Killer. Okay? Now, Ted's looking at the names of the songs, he's seeing if he recognizes any. So I didn't see it, but that doesn't mean it didn't fall behind the crack or anything, because there's only like 10 of them. But I have tapes around, and I always said I would save it because I would sell it one day for $50. Okay? Now, in 1992, it came out, and it didn't get banned by anybody. Okay? But in it, Ice-T says, F the police, and Cop Killer, I'm going to kill some, bless you, I'm going to kill some pigs, blah, blah, blah. Okay? Now, a bunch of police groups started to hear cop killer. Okay? And they're like, this is offensive. Okay? And Ice-T is like, yo, freedom of speech. Right? And then, all of a sudden, the police union said, we are going to go to Time Warner, and we are going to do a boycott, and you guys can suck eggs. And they started to boycott Time Warner because they owned Warner Brothers. Okay, Time Warner, Warner Brothers, right?
Who owned it?
Time Warner owned Warner Brothers.
Okay.
And so, all of a sudden, there's all this heat on Ice-T and Body Count, and they're like, screw you, freedom of speech, right? All of a sudden, what happened? Do you remember what happened?
No, I know.
In July of 1992, and I'm writing the article, that's how I know. In July of 1992, one of the shareholders of Time Warner went up to the shareholders meeting, and he took out the lyrics of Cop Killer, and he read them aloud to the shareholders. Okay? Cop killer, better you than me. Cop killer, F police brutality. Cop killer, I know your family's grieving. Cop killer, tonight we get even. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
And he read it out loud. But he didn't say it like that in a monotone, droning voice like me. It was shareholder Charlton Heston. Right? Charlton Heston read it. It was like the voice of God. All of a sudden, the media is all over the place, and Ice-T had to say, hey, how about this? How about if we don't sell Cop Killer anymore on the albums before Time Warner could yank the song off the album? So they continued to do the album, but you couldn't get the song anymore. Okay? Well, that was 17 years ago. Okay? Today, if me and you went on the internet and we wanted to listen to the song Cop Killer, how long would it take us before we found it?
I don't know.
8 seconds. I timed it. Today, I went on Google, Cop Killer, body count, 8 seconds later, came up, listened to it, yep, Cop Killer. Okay? Now, you can't buy Cop Killer anymore because that money, Time Warner said, we don't want any of that blood money, right? But it still exists. It didn't get banned from anywhere. I was going to look, to see if you could still buy it on iTunes, but I didn't. I'm going to check before I finish the article if you can buy the song anywhere, but you can find it very quickly. And I'll play it for you when we're done here.
And you do have the tape, right?
Yes, I just didn't find it right away. And like I said, because the clock was running, it's somewhere up there. The point of the story is they wanted to ban Cop Killer in 1992, and the left started screaming, you're taking away the freedom of speech. Well, it's come full circle where the left is now pushing back. And again, if you read it in a vacuum, if you read the lyrics of Cop Killer in a vacuum, it's kind of harsh, okay? But again, Ice-T is an entertainer and he's a singer. He doesn't really mean go out and kill a cop. Well, some people on the right would say, yes, it does go mean kill a cop. And then you are right on the line of free speech. Go, again, on the free speech spectrum. Where's the end of the free speech spectrum? I'm going to take away your life or your... I'm going to take away your life or your...
money.
Yeah. Your life or your money. Your life or your rights on one side, your money on the other side. And so Ice-T is butting right up against that free speech line. Okay? So when they turn around and say, tear those statues down, there's a lot of songs, a lot of rap songs today that owe their existence to Cop Killer back in 1992. Okay, now the funny thing is that Ice-T is now a cop on, what is it, SVU or some other TV show. But Ice-T is an actor now. Okay? So when he's singing Cop Killer, he was saying he wrote it as an artist to protest police brutality. Well, some people said, well, we don't think it's protest at all. We think it's real. Well, then all of a sudden you're at that gray area where you're butting up against the end line of free speech. Now, like I said, the funny part of the thing is a Cop Killer, okay, is not the worst song on the Body Count album. The worst one is called KKK Bitch. Okay, I had to cover my mouth. Okay.
Excuse you, sir.
Yeah. And I'll let you hear what's offensive about that. We can't even talk about how offensive that song is. But the group that it offends did not have a powerful lobby, you see what I'm saying, to go out and